I just found something really cool hiding inside 50s wiring, and I didn't actually find it by playing the guitar. I found it by playing around with a free guitar circuit simulator I built on my website. I've been using it to mess around with things like pot valleys, pickup loading, 50s and modern wiring, and treble bleeds, and I noticed something I wasn't really expecting. So if you combine 50s wiring with a treble bleed, which sort of defeats the purpose of 50s wiring, but we'll get into that in a second, you can actually create a really interesting broadband mid-scoop with certain volume and tone combinations. And I thought, man, that's actually pretty cool. I've got to see if this works in real life inside a real guitar. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to install it in a guitar and we're going to see exactly what this sounds like. So this type of modification can be installed on pretty much any guitar with passive electronics. So a Les Paul, a Strat, whatever. Now today I'm using this Strat that I use on the channel all the time. Now to show all these combinations, I'm going to use a dual load tone pot. Now that's something I did a video on a while ago. Basically it's a modified 500K pot. Now it is different from a dual gang pot like this because once it's been modified and put back together, each half is completely independent, and a dual gang pot like this isn't. Okay, so let's do the install. I've got my pot sitting inside the guitar. I've wired up the ground to the outside shell. I just want to show you what I'm going to do with these two outer legs. So the center leg has the 47 nanofarad cap to ground. So this will let me put both 50s and modern wiring on the same pot, which means I can quickly switch between them in real time. So from 5 to 10 on the control will be 50s wiring, and from 5 to 0 is going to be modern wiring. Now, some of you guys might notice that I'm using an interesting soldering iron. This is a FNIRSI smart soldering iron. I've got a link down in the description if you want to check it out, but FNIRSI sent me one over to try out. I've been using it heaps for this sort of work, a bit of guitar wiring on the bench, and it just means it's something that's portable. I don't need to take my work over to my soldering station. So this has been really helpful for my workflow, right? Let's get this last wire on. Okay, so all I did there was wire this side of the pot to the center leg, so that's going to be our 50s wiring. And I wired this side of the pot to the input side of the volume pot. So this leg over here, I actually went up to where it's connecting at the switch just to make life easier for me. So I've also installed this three-way switch with a Kinman style treble bleed on one side, it's sort of my variation, and I've got a Satriani style small cap bleed on the other side. And I've got the wiring diagram for this whole thing over on my website. You just need a free account. I've got a link down in the description. And if you want to support the channel, you can upgrade to one of those other tiers if you want to unlock other videos and bits and pieces. Okay, so let's have a listen. So first up, we're going to establish what we're comparing. This is modern wiring, so essentially it's just the tone control connected to the input side of that volume pot. Because this is about tonal differences today, I'm going to volume match best I can these examples, just so the loudest one doesn't automatically mean it's going to be the best one. Now with modern wiring, when the volume is on 10, everything is normal. But as you roll the volume back, you get a little bit of that top end loss. Now you can definitely hear it there on that neck pickup. It's pretty obvious. Now the upside of modern wiring is that the volume and tone controls are relatively independent. So if I turn that tone control down, I'm not dramatically changing the behavior of the volume control. So there's the trade-off. Modern wiring gives you predictable controls with a little bit of top-end roll-off as you turn that volume control down. And that can be a good thing, by the way, if you want a mellower and cleaner tone with just one adjustment. Okay, let's keep everything the same but change to 50s wiring. So this is simply the tone control connected directly to the wiper of the volume pot. That's it, just shifting that wire from the input side to the wiper. This is where things get a little interesting. Let's do the volume sweep. So you can hear there a lot more top end being retained, and that's the whole reason why people like 50s wiring. But there is a bit of a downside. Look what happens when I roll down that tone control while the volume is backed off a little bit. The two controls are sort of interacting with each other, and you can hear that in the guitar as well. The tone control kind of becomes like a secondary volume control. So 50s wiring can be great if you like to ride that volume control, but the tone and volume control aren't as independent. And if you're trying to dial in a sound really quickly using both the volume and tone controls, it can actually be pretty tricky. So naturally, people came up with another solution for top end loss, which is the treble bleed. Now I've got another video all about treble bleeds. It goes down a bit of a rabbit hole there if you want to check that one out. So basically we're giving those high frequencies another path around that volume control. So let's add one. This is the Kinman series style bleed, which I really like. So if I roll this volume back to sort of 6 or 7, this is without a treble bleed. This is with the Kinman one. And this is the Satriani style one. Do those again. So you can hear all that top end is now being retained, which is great. But if you start to combine modern wiring with a treble bleed, it can create some tones that sort of sound a little unnatural. Let me show you. Right, so this is where I started going down a bit of a rabbit hole. Because I've got the simulator on my site, I can combine things in random ways to see what happens. So let's just bring it up here. Okay, so if we select a standard single coil, go down to 50s wiring, and put in a treble bleed. And this is where I saw something really interesting. So if we dip this volume a bit, let's say to like 8, and we set the tone control to around about half, so look at the shape of this curve. We've actually created a really broad dip through that mid-range frequency response, like a broad mid-scoop. And that's the weird thing. Neither of these circuits were designed to give you a mid-scoop, but when you combine them under the right conditions, that's exactly what we get right here. And depending on the combination of controls, it becomes more or less obvious. So that's when I thought, okay, I've got to hear what this sounds like. Let's do a couple of really quick examples. I'm using 50s wiring and I've got the Kinman series bleed engaged. You can hear it's kind of scooping that mid-range out. It sounds really interesting. If I bring back the volume in, it kind of just increases the overall signal and the bass a little bit. Really interesting. Actually, in this configuration using the dual low tone pot, there is a ton of different sounds. Honestly, almost too many. It'd probably get a little bit confusing, to be honest. You could put these on a switch so you've got the full range of that tone pot instead of having it split into two like this. And I think you'd be able to find some really, really cool tones. Now, I'm definitely not saying that 50s wiring is better than modern wiring. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. And honestly, I prefer modern wiring with a Kinman style series bleed. But I think it's a really cool example of what is actually happening inside a passive guitar circuit, because we've got this really interesting story about how guitar wiring has evolved from the original 50s arrangement to modern to treble bleeds and now these hybrid approaches. And that's a rabbit hole I'm definitely going to save for another video because I've got some pretty interesting and cool things to add to this. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching and we'll catch you in the next video.